All right, this is Chat UTD and my response to United getting knocked out of the FA Cup at Old Trafford against Fulham on penalties yesterday. Let's look at the game first. The thing that stood out to me more than anything else was United's shameful lack of quality. It was astounding for a club of United's stature. The best way I can describe this team is they are completely nondescript. They have no positive defining features. They have no patterns of play, no structure, no cohesion, no fluidity, and a lack of ability to even do the basic things, the very basic things, with any quality whatsoever, which is a huge problem moving forward. It was a low quality first half in general, but Fulham edged it and probably just about deserved to be in front. And obviously, it's a good time to score for them just before half time. But I'm looking at United thinking, okay, we've just had half time. You've been with your manager for 15 minutes. This is a massive game that we have to win. It's a season defining game, potentially. Let's see some fire in your belly. Let's see a response. And for the first part of the second half, it was much the same. The goal that Bruno scored came from nothing. And whilst that galvanised us and the atmosphere changed, and we did start to see some improvement, the improvement was only in doing the percentages better. I thought we knocked long balls into channels. We were very direct, trying to find Garnacho where possible. That was the best source of our attacks for the whole game, really, but particularly in the second half. It was just percentages and vibes. There was still no structure. There was still no patterns of play. Much the same as the previous round against Leicester, really. The improvement came from knocking the ball behind the Fulham defence and turning them the way they didn't want to go. But that was it, really. We had some chances, they had some chances. Still thought they were probably just about the better team in terms of their structure of their play. Fulham, in the extra time, it could have gone either way. They had a couple of moments, we had a couple of moments, probably 50-50 really. Over the whole game, they probably just about edged it, but the lack of quality was just so obvious. Just a few features of the game, or individual features. Rasmus has now gone 18 games without scoring a goal. They're not all league games, but 19 games represents half a league season, and he's gone 18 games without scoring a goal as a striker. Now, the law of averages says even if you're in poor form and even if you're playing for a poor team, you're going to score a couple of goals in 18 games. One's going to ping off your shin or something. But I don't recall him even making any noteworthy chances for himself over the last few weeks, let alone scoring goals. Like his team, he's nondescript. He's offering nothing. And that continued yesterday. On the positives, Bruno's goal was excellent. I have to say, after that, I'm expecting the Alamo. I'm expecting us to really go for it. But as I said, it was 50-50 even after that. I thought Fulham probably settled better than we did, although there was some improvement after that goal. But it was a great goal, a talismanic figure, Bruno, and another goal that got us back in a game. De Ligt for me was a standout player, an absolute warrior, colossal, man mountain. Everything I want in a centre back at Man United: desire, heart, aggression, a leader, a role model on the pitch yesterday. He was outstanding yesterday. And a continued improvement from Joshua Zirkzee, who ultimately missed the final penalty. Heartbreaking for the lad. But he's found that niche for himself in behind the striker. He's not a striker, he's not an out-and-out striker, you can see that, but that role in behind, he links play, he turns well, he draws a lot of fouls, he's using his body much smarter than he was before, he carries the ball quite far, he's good at dribbling. His decision making isn't always great, sometimes his quality of pass isn't brilliant, but with the decision making, you could put that down to just the stage of career he's at. If he does stay for a few years at United and we're still saying the same thing in a few years, and then maybe that's just a limitation of his play, but at the moment you could still put it down to the stage of the career of his career that he's at. The big thing that stands out to me is he now looks like he has some belief that he belongs at Manchester United, where previously he didn't look like that. His body language, the way he carries himself. He's given advice to young Obi, which was great to see. And as I say, heartbreaking for him that he missed the pen, but a player that continues to improve, and perhaps he could forge a career for himself here. So good resilience from him, because I certainly didn't think that a few weeks or months ago. Nice to see the younger lads getting a bit of a game. Obi and Heaven. I'll start with Heaven. I thought he was very composed, calm, didn't put a foot wrong. Manager showed a lot of faith putting him into that situation, and he just took it all in his stride. Obi looked tentative to start with. Didn't look like he believed in himself physically. And when I look at him, I see a big unit of a lad. But he's 17. And as a 17-year-old lad, you can't see yourself in the mirror while you're playing football. You don't realise probably how big and powerful you look. You probably feel about 4'3" in amongst these giants. But the turning point was when he had that physical duel with their goal scorer, Bassi, in and around the box. And he out-muscled him. And Bassi actually fouled him. And if it had gone down, it would have probably been a pen. But he recovered himself. He had a shot. The shot wasn't great. But that lifted him. And after that, he was a nuisance. He made things happen. The highlight of which I thought was in the inside left channel. He had that shot with his right foot and the keeper saved it. And it was a decent performance from him. And I think certainly food for thought in terms of maybe a chance for us to have an alternative to Højlund. Probably not from the start, but at least from the bench. And you can say we shouldn't be relying on a 17-year-old to come off the bench. No, maybe we shouldn't, but that's where we're at. That's where we're at. The thing, as I say, that stood out yesterday was that lack of quality and lack of patterns of play. And Amrim's spoken quite a bit about confidence when he's been asked, why are you not getting your ideas across? Why are the team not doing what you want them to do? He talks a lot about confidence and lack of it. And that can be a feature of what's going on, but he's been with them for 4 months, and confidence is something that comes and goes, peaks and troughs. You have moments where even in a poor team will show signs of confidence. Nothing has changed over a 4-month period, so it's not just confidence. They're not a confident team, and I think it's very difficult to play at Old Trafford when things aren't going the way you want them to go. There's no coincidence our worst performances seem to come at Old Trafford. But over a 4-month period, as I say, you have ups and downs with confidence, and this has just stayed pretty much the same, bar 3 games. City away, Liverpool away, Arsenal away. Bizarrely, as they're the 3 best teams in the country. But the common denominator in those 3 games were that we were rank outsiders and massive underdogs, and clearly that floated our boat and we were able to put on a performance. But that's not your week-to-week reality. Your week-to-week reality is Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, Everton, Fulham. And what is clear is this team isn't able to structure performances against those types of teams in a way that helps us to win those games. The record we've got in the last 4 months is terrible. And all we have now is the Europa League, which I did think we had a decent chance of winning, but when I reflect on what I've just said there, you're not playing Barcelona, you're not playing Real Madrid, you're not playing City or Arsenal or Liverpool, you're playing Real Sociedad, you're playing Frankfurt. Good teams, but teams that are probably of the equivalent of those ones that we struggle against in the Premier League. Your Brightons, your Bournemouths, your Notts Forests, etc. They're the games we can't win at the moment. So I think the season, to all intents and purposes, is pretty much over. And the big question is, what do we do next? Where do we go? This isn't the prelude for better times ahead. I've long since said I'll take a season where it's just, an awful season where you hit rock bottom and then you have to just clear the decks and start again. The club can't clear the decks and start again because too many of the players we need to get rid of are on watertight contracts that no one else is going to want to take up. And more important, more significant than that, I don't see this as being the prelude to a comeback. Like, this is as bad as it's going to get and then we're going to come back. Or this isn't happening right now, but there's work going on in the background that suggests something better is ahead in the future. Now, maybe in the late 80s, people would have said the same about Ferguson. They probably would have done. But I'm not just going to have blind faith that it's going to get better, because I see no evidence that it's going to get better at all. If anything, I think it's going to be worse. I think the decline is going to continue. And one of the reasons for that is, if you look at our squad, that's full of substandard players that are not good enough, that are trying their best, but are just not good enough. For Amorim to have the team that he wants and to play the way he wants, we need a right wing back of the profile that fits the system that he's playing. We need 2 midfielders to play where Bruno and Ugarte were playing yesterday. We need 2 more attacking midfielders to play in behind the striker. We need a striker. You could argue we need a goalkeeper, but just forgetting that for a second, even if you just go with the ones I've mentioned, the outfield players, that's 6 players that we need to bring in. And they can't just be anyone. They need to be good players. So the profile of player we need to be bringing in, they're going to go to Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Newcastle. So if you go, if then you think, okay, so let's go to the standard below that, and that pool of players. Those players now, to be honest with you, are probably more likely to go to Bournemouth, Brighton, Villa, Forest, Fulham. I probably missed a team out. But I've just counted there that there's 10 teams in the Premier League that are probably more desirable to play for than Man United. Now, we're always going to have something of a pull because of we're Man United, that kind of thing. But not as much as we used to. And if you're an agent of a player now, of any of those clubs I just mentioned, and any of those clubs that I just mentioned are in as well as Man United, even if the player says, oh, it's Man United, the agent might say to him, just look at what's been happening there over the last year or so, the last 2 or 3 years, and what happens when players who are on the up go there. It's career suicide. Look at the atmosphere around the club. Look at what's happening at the club. Look at how they play when they're at Old Trafford. Do you want to do that? If you went and played for Villa, they're a big club. They haven't got the prestige of Man United, but they haven't got the pressure of Man United either. You could probably go and play your football, enjoy it, and continue to improve. And that might then get you a move to an even better club. And they're probably going to pay you similar wages, because United can't afford to pay silly wages now. So the point I'm making is the pool of players we're going to be choosing from, it stands to reason it's going to be quite small. And if it's quite small, your chances of uncovering a gem in that are slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. So you're adding substandard players onto an already substandard squad. So how does it get better? That's not to mention the fact that there's players in that squad that need to go as well, that probably won't be possible for that to happen because of the contracts that they're on. So how is Amorim going to get what he needs? And just to sort of summarise how poor the squad is, we had 7 players on the bench yesterday, 2 of which were young goalkeepers. So 5 outfield players on the bench. 2 of them that came on were Obi Martin and Heaven, 2 young kids. So you look at the work that needs to be done on that squad. That's 6 players that I've just mentioned. That's on top of what we've already got. You probably, on terms of what we've already got, you need to get rid of a few of them. If you get rid of a few of them, you've got to replace them and get those 6 players that I just mentioned. And where are they coming from, as I say? So, as I say, I don't think this is the storm before the sunshine. I think this is a storm that goes on and on and on and on. Where does that leave Ruben Amorim? Ruben Amorim's, the goodwill he's got from the crowd, from the United fan base, for me comes back to, or is based on four different things. 1, his reputation at Sporting Lisbon. 2, it's a complete mess around him. He hasn't been given what he needs, etc. 3, how he comes across in press conferences, the way he carries himself. And 4, some of the stuff he's done in the background and the standards he's set, and the housekeeping, the gatekeeping, if you like. I think that's been pretty impressive. But none of that is based on an improvement in the team because there hasn't been any. If the 9-2 Foundation bought Man United a year or so ago and they appointed Ruben Amorim as their manager and they cleared the decks for him, they wrote off contracts, they got rid of all the players that he didn't want, and they brought in a plethora of players that were going to suit his system, would Ruben Amorim help Man United to become a really top team again? I'm quite confident in saying yes. Yeah. But that's not the reality. A manager at Man United now has to be able to manage a mess, has to be able to accept the fact that you're not going to get the players that you want. There's going to be a number of players that you're going to have to work with that won't fit your system and won't fit the ethos of what you want either, or the culture that you want. But we can't get rid of them. We have no money. The players we have are substandard. You have to manage that. We could say it shouldn't be like that, but it is like that. And I used to say it about Ten Hag, so I've got to be fair to Amorim. If you had a perfect set of circumstances, it would be very different. You haven't at Man United. When you accept a deal to come here, you're accepting a deal that you're walking into a mess. And are you, as the manager, able to get the best out of players in that mess? The answer is no, he's not. I go back to something I've said before. If Amorim would have replaced, if you had a time machine and you took 40-year-old Ruben Amorim and you said when we were about to replace David Moyes or replace Louis van Gaal, 40-year-old Ruben Amorim with his history at Sporting Lisbon and Braga and was it Casapia that he was at before that, was available to take over, he'd have been perfect then. And I think he could have been our Jurgen Klopp. Because the rot hadn't set in at that point. But it's 11 years on, and it has. And as bizarre as this might sound, I actually think a less able manager would be a better fit for this team. Because Ruben Amorim is not cut out to manage a bang average 14th placed Manchester United, which is what we are. So if Ineos were not prepared to give him or haven't got the finances to give him the tools that he needs, they shouldn't have appointed him. I want to make it really clear. I'm not saying he's rubbish. Sack him. He's a waste of time. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that he is not the right person right now to take Man United forward. He's too good a manager, essentially, to be working with these players that he's got. You can't get the best out of them. And we've got this game model and we've got this idea that we want elite and all that kind of stuff. But we've ran before we can walk. We've got a manager who really would be ideal if we were a team challenging the top 3 or 4. We're not. He's not ideal for that. So Ineos have made a massive mistake because they couldn't give him the tools that he requires to do the job they've brought him in to do. It's obscure, it's bizarre, it's crazy, but that's the reality of it, in my opinion. So Ineos, just bringing it back to them. If they were running the club, if they bought the entire club and the Glazers weren't here anymore, and we were a year in, they'll be doing a lot of similar stuff to what they're doing now because they would still have to make it a more efficient club. They would still have to make cuts. They would still be trying to handle, obviously, debt because they'd probably have to put more debt on the club to buy it. The Glazers' debt wouldn't have gone anywhere. We'd still be in a period of austerity. They still would be making poor decisions because that's who they are. And there would be a bunch of limitations about Ineos that we'd all have our concerns about, but the Glazers would have gone. It's a start again job. But the one thing we'd all get behind is you freed us from the Glazers. and we accept now you're clearing up their mess. Now, in reality, we've got all those same limitations of Ineos. The fact that they haven't got the money to sort out what needs to be sorted out, the fact that they are having to make all these cuts and austerity, the fact that they've made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision on the football side of things, and the fact actually, which I haven't mentioned, is that they haven't got any pedigree as football owners, a pedigree of success as football owners. We've got all of that, and the fact that because of Ineos, the Glazers are still there. Apart from Munich, the Glazers are the worst thing to ever happen to this football club. And the reason they are still there is because of Ineos. And I thought, even though I didn't want Ineos, the one thing they couldn't mess up as the people that were going to be running the football side of things, the one thing they couldn't mess up was the morale, was to make them, I didn't think it was possible to make the morale worse. Now, absolutely, the club needs to run more efficiently. Absolutely, some cuts need to be made. But then, once you've done that, you have to have the finances then to kick on. You have to have the as I mentioned it before, the sunshine at the end of the storm. And I think what everyone can see here is there is no sunshine at the end of the storm. Where is the money going to come from that's necessary in the next 2 or 3 years for us to start moving forward? Also consider our starting position is so bad, both financially and on the pitch. Where is the vast improvement going to come from? Riddle me that. And again, like I've said before, because the Glazers are still here, we all know that something will be in the works, in the background, that Ineos and the Glazers are working on together as a team that will line their pockets in the next few years. But if the Glazers are involved, we know it won't be good for Manchester United, it'll just be good for them. So this is regardless of whether we got beat by Fulham or not. It's just as important if we'd have won 5-0 yesterday, but the feeling around the place, of course, would have been a lot better. But I repeat something I've said many times, and I'm going to keep saying it. The only way Man United move forward as a club is with new owners, because it can't and won't happen under this structure and under this way of doing things. And some people might be quite arsy about what I said about Amrim, that he's not the right person in amongst these circumstances, and that well he needs the tools to do his job. The club should give him the tools to do his job. Yeah, they should, but should's a fantasy world. Doesn't exist. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. If you want that, then you need to push for strategic protest for change and take part in that protest. And I point people to the video I did on Friday evening. I hope it's quite informative, where I look at the difference between loud complaint, which is what we've been doing, and strategic protest with change in mind. And that's what people need to do. Because I agree, it's massively unfair on Ruben Amorim. He has got 2 hands tied behind his back, without a doubt. But if you come and work for Man United, that's the environment you work in. You've got to be able to at least make some improvements in that environment, and he isn't able to. So they shouldn't have appointed him if they couldn't give him the tools to do the job. But it all comes back to the bigger problem, which is the owners. We're not moving forward with this ownership structure. Glazers out.